Hey everyone, Jared Sandler here, wishing you a happy Memorial Day weekend. As you may or may not know, my mind is usually all over the place. I know I do a lot of work in baseball, but I have a deep love for all sports. So on Fridays, I'm basically going to dump whatever's on my sports mind into a video on this channel. So first of all, just a reminder, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just click the button below or go to Sandler J1 on YouTube to find the channel. And as always, would love for you to post comments. Love the feedback, whether it's a comment, a reaction, a question to something I said, or maybe you want me to talk about something or address something that's on your mind. I'll be checking the comments and be sure to do my best to carry on that conversation and use the comments as a way to do that. All right, so I've got a few things that I want to talk about. The first thing, if you know me and you've had a sports conversation with me, you know one of the things that I'm passionate about that no one else seems to really care about, why in the NHL and the NBA we no longer wear white jerseys at home. Maybe it's just because I grew up with this that, you wore your whites at home. But I love that when a road team used to come to town, you could see their colors. I always see the Stars colors or the Mavs colors. I love the white jerseys at home. I love the old Stars whites and the old Mavs whites. But I love seeing the different colors of road teams come into my arena. Now, why don't I care about this as much in the NFL? I don't know. It's also worth noting that growing up in Dallas with the Cowboys always wearing white at home, except for a few exceptions, well, you also got to see the road team's colors when a team would come to Texas Stadium and now AT&T Stadium. So, I guess it's maybe just because that's what I'm used to, but I am leading the charge for bringing home whites back to the NBA and the NHL. The NBA has recently gone away from that trend. The NHL, since their original lockout in the early 2000s, has gone away from that. But anyway, on to more important things, more significant things. One thing that I don't think enough people are talking about in salary cap leagues is how what we're dealing with financially, not just in this country, but around the world, could impact things. I'm still hearing a ton of people talk about how the NBA salary cap is, continuing to grow and the NFL salary cap is continuing to rise. And maybe it still will, but I don't know that you can be so sure of that. I mean, we're getting ready to have seasons in which teams aren't going to be able to generate max revenue because we might not have any fans, and if we do have fans, we're certainly going to start with only a fraction of what a stadium can hold. So I don't have answers as to what that means for the salary cap. I don't necessarily think the cap is going to drop. It might. I don't think it will, but I don't think it's going to grow as much as some of the owners and players and agencies like CAA, tax representation, maybe projected it would as they did some of their projections and number analyses over the last couple years. Now, on the baseball side, while there's not a salary cap, these owners don't have unlimited funds. And, based on what other industries these owners are in, what would allow them to accrue their wealth could determine a change of plans for a team. If you're in an industry that's suffering right now, maybe that changes the way you're planning on spending. And we don't know how that's going to transpire yet, but that is something interesting to consider. I'm curious to see what sort of ownership changes take place, not just in baseball, but other sports over the next couple years as a result of what we're dealing with. A lot of discussion right now. Moving on to the next thing. All right, we've done a 10-part doc series on Michael Jordan. ESPN just announced that next summer we'll have a 9-part. They called it a journey, subjecting Tom Brady and his 9 Super Bowl appearances. But a lot of people have asked, what would you want next? And if it was a player in the NBA, an active player, I think I'd go with Vince Carter. He's had such a fascinating career. He has been a different type of player a few different times. At one time he was the superstar. Then he became just a really good role player. Now he's kind of the veteran role player. He's played with so many different people. You've got the dunking. He's been in NBA Finals. I think I'd go with Vince Carter for active players. For inactive players or someone who's still active in basketball but not as a player, how about Steve Kerr? I don't know that anyone came off better through the Michael Jordan documentary than Steve Kerr. And he's lived such a fascinating life, not just from a basketball side. I'd really love to see a documentary or a more in-depth look at Steve Kerr. All right, next thing. Speaking of basketball, we're all waiting for the Mavs to add that third stud piece, right? It seems these days you need 3 if you're going to truly contend for an NBA title. I got bad news, or at least I'm concerned. I don't know if that guy's out there in free agency this upcoming offseason. And there was an article on Bleacher Report, the 10 best players most likely to be traded this upcoming offseason. Bradley Beal's number 1, and I think Bradley Beal would be a really interesting fit for the Mavericks. My guess is there's going to be a ton of competition, and I don't know if the Mavs necessarily can put together the package that's going to win out if Washington decides to trade Bradley Beal. The next best player on the list that would maybe be a fit is Jrue Holiday, and I just don't know if he's good enough to be the third piece on an NBA championship team. He would definitely add, good perimeter shooting. He shoots around 35, 36%. He's a really good defender, good athlete. He's got good size. But to me, Jrue Holiday is still a number 4 on a championship team. He can be a number 3 on a really good team. But if you want to put together a roster that people look at and say, wow, these guys are, if not front runners, right there to win a title, I think that you need someone a little better than Jrue Holiday. And I guess my point with all this is I worry that unless Donnie and Mark can get really creative, we might have to wait another offseason until the Mavs get that piece. Because to me, finding that superstar piece is similar to finding a quarterback in the NFL. If you're going to go through the draft to get a quarterback, it's silly to just draft a quarterback in the first round because you need one. If you don't believe in the guy, or if you don't think the guy is truly the right fit, drafting that guy will set you back if he's not the right fit. Like maybe Dwayne Haskins with the Redskins or Mitchell Trubisky with the Bears. So I guess my point is I don't want the Mavs to go out and just get a third really good player for the sake of doing it if they don't think that player is the best player to fit with Luka and Kristaps Porzingis and their skill sets. I think Bradley Beal and Jrue Holiday would fit. I'm curious whether the Mavs can land Beal, and I'm not sure if Holiday is good enough to be that third piece, but I guess we'll wait and see. All right, one more football thing, and then we'll end on a serious note. Jamal Adams, it appears that he is still available. I am way more bullish on trading for Jamal Adams by giving up next year's first-round pick than I was leading up to the draft with the first-round pick the Cowboys had. However, the Cowboys are going to sign Dak to a long-term deal. I know it's not done yet. They're going to do it. And because the salary cap might not go up as much as some people anticipated, it just means that the Cowboys, who already were going to have to be financially prudent after signing Dak to a big deal, are going to have to be even more financially prudent. And it's not that I don't think you're getting the right value in a vacuum if you trade, say, next year's first and third for Jamal Adams. But my question is, if you're trading for Jamal Adams, you're going to have to sign him to a big deal. He's not going to be cheap. Is that the position where you want to spend money on and continue to eat up a chunk of that pie? And I just don't know that the safety spot is where you need that money to go. So value-wise, I think it makes sense. Strategically, though, with the idea that you've got a pie and you can only split it up so many ways, I don't know if it makes sense. Last thing, Jerry Sloan passed away this morning. Legendary coach. As you know, 26 seasons as a coach, 23 of them with the Jazz, made the playoffs 15 straight years. I think Darren Williams, DFW's own, probably ran him out of town in that 2010-2011 season. I know Jerry Sloan never won a championship. He ran into the Chicago Bulls twice in the 90s as a coach. Ironically, he was such a good player with the Chicago Bulls. But to me, to be able to stay in one place for 23 years and have the success he had is an incredible achievement, especially in an era where coaches don't typically last that long. Their voices start to lose volume, so to speak. So shout out to Jerry Sloan's career, one of the best coaches in NBA history. Sad to hear of his passing today. All right, next week we got some fun things. We're going to do an interview with Eric Nadel, got another special surprise, plus we'll have our series of weekly videos. Please subscribe, please comment. Would love your feedback. Would love to go back and forth with you on the things we talk about or things maybe you want to hear more about. But again, if you could please subscribe, I'd appreciate it. Until then, happy Memorial Day weekend. Talk to you next week.